Guys, welcome to this week's video. We're talking about business COVID grants with Liam Bailey from O'Brien Palmer. Liam, you're a regular on our video YouTube channel now, so are you ready? You pumped?
Yeah, mate. Thanks very much for having me back.
Right, let's do it. It's a good time in the video to remind you all to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel now for brand new weekly videos, up-to-date information on COVID-19 grants, and exclusive videos to help you become an industry leader in your business. Subscribing means you won't miss out on any of our content, our weekly videos, helping you create massive financial and personal growth. That's it, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Liam, welcome to back again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that you are the first, the first person that we've had in our line of guests on our YouTube video that's actually appeared second time round. So you're technically classed now as a regular.
Oh, I can appreciate that. That's awesome.
That's it. Well, today's video, look, I mean, last week we posted a video with all the information about all the different COVID grants. And we had a really good reception, some really good feedback about that. And a lot of our clients and new clients, potentials out there really engaged with it and really loved it. So I thought, let's continue this theme and really sort of bring in with what you do at O'Brien Palmer and thinking about, I guess, COVID business vaccine and looking at what businesses really need to know the second time round and talking about how that landscape has really changed.
Yeah, look, I think that's really important because there's a lot of very important differentiating factors about this lockdown and about the government's response to this lockdown that differentiate it from what happened last year. And directors really should be aware of those.
Yeah. Well, what I'm going to do is let's just quickly have a look at what topics we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so as we said, we're talking about the COVID business vaccine. Don't let COVID haunt you for life. And this is presented today on the 5th of August, 2021. So the information is relevant today. And Liam is going to be talking about the following topics. So feel free to plug in if any comments there before we get going there, Liam. But Liam, first up, he's going to give us his what I call the shameless plug. So we can hear all about him and how people can reach out to him. We're going to be talking about the director responsibilities that basically don't stop during the pandemic. The next thing we're going to be talking about is how accessing COVID grants can help a director company stay afloat. And then also, I guess, one of the topics that a few clients have asked us already is, we've had some trouble and we're sort of thinking, do we liquidate now? Do we liquidate that later? What does that landscape look like?
Excellent. So, shameless plug. My name is Liam Bailey. I'm the managing partner of O'Brien Palmer Insolvency and Business Advisory. I am a liquidator and a trustee in bankruptcy. And I live here in the Shire and getting to know accountants, professionals and business owners throughout the local area.
Cool. Well, and I can attest that I've known Liam for quite some time now, and he's helped one or two people out there that we know out there and done a very good job. So
thank you.
Love the shameless plug. Might just quickly share with our audience a quick clip or screen of you there. All right, so guys, there's Liam's details there on the screen, ready for you to get in contact with him should you need to.
Yeah, please don't hesitate at any time to give us a call or get in touch. Happy to provide you with a free assessment of your circumstances and the options that are available to you, taking into account. Happy to get on the phone and have a chat with you or a Zoom chat and really personalise some of the advice that we're going to refer to today. So
Liam, thanks for your shameless plug. That was great. The next thing that I guess our second question for today's topic was director responsibilities. Effectively, they don't stop during a pandemic, do they? So how does that look now to what it was when COVID first came around?
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to remember that just because we're in the grip of a pandemic and public health orders, directors' duties haven't changed and they're not being relieved. This is a bit different from last time. Back in 2020, when the government provided stimulus packages to the economy and to business, it came with legislative reform that made it more difficult to wind up companies, and it was more difficult to enforce debts against companies. But it also came with a statutory indemnity against insolvent trading. That is, as long as you were acting in the ordinary course of your business, there was a conditional indemnity. You could not be liable for insolvent trading. None of those reforms have been duplicated this time. So it's important to note that whilst there is a stimulus package available, there are no specific legislative reforms to protect directors from the consequences of trading during the pandemic.
Yeah, so no get out of jail free cards really this time around.
That's correct.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, how does that also then, on the other side for a creditor, I guess that, I mean, that must give for a creditor a lot more ease and comfort knowing that,
Yeah, certainly creditors have got a lot more power this time to do debt enforcement and are not required to provide compromises like they were last time. Landlords can enforce the full value of their rents that are owed. It's presumed that people under finance arrangements will have to be aware of the consequences of defaulting on those financial arrangements, because there's no required protections or forbearance there like there was last time. So the duties that you really need to be aware of when you're conducting yourself as a director of a company is to be aware that the duty to act in good faith and for a proper purpose, with proper care and diligence or professionalism in your duties, and to prevent the company from trading whilst insolvent, are still in place. And ultimately, if those duties are breached, there will be potentially personal liability consequences flowing as a result.
Yeah, and that's a really good point about the rental, like something I definitely hadn't thought about, but also, I guess the COVID grants that have definitely been given out by Service New South Wales, they're pretty clear in saying that they're there to cover basically the ongoing cost of the business, and that could be anything from, like you said, the rent, lease repayments, HP, whatever it may be. Even it can even cover wages, but it is there to cover those payments, so you can keep up your end of the deal as far as a director goes in staying solvent.
Yeah, last time the government was handing out money to businesses, there was a dual purpose there. Obviously, we wanted to ensure businesses survived, and we didn't want to have a rush on Centrelink lines for people to claim benefits. So the businesses were able to claim credits that flowed through to support keeping people employed. There was also a benefit to that in that it was intended as an economic stimulus package. This time around, the purpose of the payments being provided by the state government are clearly more designed to prevent businesses from going broke more than anything else. And I think that this is a conclusion that can be reached when you look at the lack of other supporting legislation along the way. That is, that there is no indemnity against insolvent trading, and there is no requirement for creditors' forbearance this time. So realistically, this is merely payments designed to help businesses stay afloat if those payments are adequate to the task.
And I guess that really answers, like, our third question was, how does accessing COVID grants help a director stay solvent? And this is, I mean, you've pretty much just summed it up right there.
Yeah, look, it's really important to realize that this is effectively income being given to a company. It's not intended as a handout to directors. It's designed to ensure that businesses stay afloat. Insofar as directors keep businesses afloat purely to access these payments, and in doing so, breach their duties or leave the company to trade whilst insolvent, they are potentially creating risk and exposure for themselves down the track when the company is ultimately placed into liquidation, and the liquidator looks at the conduct of the directors during these times and then holds their hand out to them for the recovery of funds for the benefit of creditors.
Yeah, it's one thing that I often say to my clients when we go to set up companies. We talk about possibly the idea of going from a sole trader to a company and what that looks like. And the one thing I often, always remind my clients is that just because you've got a company doesn't mean that, hey, you can now hide behind your corporate veil and not worry about anything that happens. The other end of the bargain as well is that if you're operating as a company, if you want to keep that corporate veil and so it doesn't get pierced, and by piercing we mean that it no longer protects you with limited liability, it's really important that directors hold up to their end of the deal, which could be as simple as paying all your creditors on time and not getting yourself in a position where you're trading whilst insolvent.
Yeah, that's right. These are not just vehicles for the government to put money in directors' back pockets. It's important that the monies being provided by the government under these grants are applied to the debts that the company has before payments are made from the company to the director themselves. So primarily that will be the business expenses and wages that the company can't support. And if it is found ultimately by a liquidator that gets appointed down the track that the director has taken funds out inappropriately whilst leaving creditors unpaid, then directors will be found to have breached their duties and there'll be personal liability consequences.
So that probably leads to my fourth question. To liquidate now or to liquidate later, if you're thinking that this is something that you need to think about where you're currently at. So I guess what we want to talk about, or what I want to explore with you, is what are the deciding factors? And, I guess even just go back into, revisit as well. I know you mentioned it early in the video today, but, once again, that landscape, how has it changed once again from that first lockdown to current lockdown? And, have you got any examples?
Yeah, look, last time, as I said, there was, we were at a time when we did not know how the COVID was going to impact upon the economy, upon business. We were looking to provide a time by which business could assess the impact of COVID on their operations and ensure that businesses stayed afloat through that time of uncertainty. The uncertainty factor appears to no longer be an issue. We now, more than 18 months into this pandemic, we are aware of the impact of lockdowns on business. We're aware of the impact of COVID on the economy. That uncertainty has disappeared, and directors need to remember that the government's not sitting out there providing them with protection against the consequences of the of the pandemic and of the insolvencies that may flow from it. They are helping prop up businesses which they see as would otherwise be viable if it were not for COVID. So if the COVID relief payments that are being handed out by the state government are insufficient to ensure that your company is solvent, that is, that it can pay its debts as and when they fall due and payable, then you are insolvent, and putting off the liquidation of the company or the appointment of administrator to restructure the business is only going to create adverse consequences for directors personally. So if the payments are insufficient to ensure that you can pay all of your debts, then you need to be taking appropriate action now and obtaining advice now about how to deal with the insolvencies of your company.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I guess if I had to sum that up, it's really don't be don't be short-sighted by what's currently in front of you. The bigger it's all about the bigger picture, and you don't want to essentially think that, I can get a government grant and it's going to solve my issues, but also thinking, well, it'll just help me survive an extra week. Really, it's just going to add to your problems, isn't it?
I'm really quite amazed how people generally don't expect that government is there to protect you and look after you. We don't want to rely upon government services. And yet somehow in the current circumstances, we believe that the government is going to take care of us and protect us from everything that as a consequence of COVID. That's just not the case. The government has a job to do to ensure that the most vulnerable are protected. It's up to you to protect yourself from the consequences of an economic downturn as a result of what is happening. Relying upon the government to ensure that there's no negative consequences for you would be very misguided, in my point.
Yeah. Well, that's some awesome information. Was there anything else you could add for those who are viewing who might be in a position where they are thinking they need to contact you, and any final pieces of advice before they maybe pick up the phone to speak to you?
Yeah, look, first and foremost, and my constant advice to everyone is you cannot make any decisions about the future of your company and the things that need to occur to ensure your company's survival if you do not have an accurate and complete set of financial accounts. So please don't allow these stressful times to lead you to not maintain proper books and records of your company, because anyone that's providing you advice needs to have up-to-date accounts if they're going to be able to provide you with accurate information. Speak to your accountant. They do in fact care about you, and they are the first point of call for you when your businesses are struggling. So speak to them about putting together proper cash flows and analysing the data to ensure that you are able to meet those debts, that you've got a realistic expectation of being able to meet debts as they fall due. And third, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and make a phone call, because we are available at any time to have a discussion with you about your circumstances, about the options that are available to you. We can record the conversations that we're having so that you have evidence of having done the right thing in compliance with your director's duties to obtain proper and legitimate advice about how to deal with the circumstances your company faces itself in. And three, sit down and be honest with your advisors. We're here to help, but we can't if we don't know the full facts. There's nothing shameful, there's nothing embarrassing about needing to access help for your business during these times. No one could, you can't be held responsible for the consequences of what's happened in COVID. You can only be responsible for not responding to it appropriately.
Well, that sums it up, and I think that's just great advice, and it's something that you just got to do if you are in a position where you feel as though it's just all getting too much for you to run your business. Don't delay, don't put the head in the bucket of sand. Take action, because no one else will. You're responsible as a director, and that's what I would say to any of my clients or anyone I know I come across that might be hitting financial trouble that's beyond their control.
It's ultimately counterproductive to obtain $50,000 of benefit from government handouts if the company is going to end up in liquidation, and as a result of your actions, you've got a $100,000 insolvent trading claim against you. So think big picture, think long term.
Just lastly, I think one thing we didn't cover, but if you are caught being, trading whilst insolvent, what are the punishments? How does the courts treat someone who has done this?
So a liquidator looks at the situation with the benefit of hindsight, and we look at all of the circumstances of the company, all the records that are available, and we form a view or an opinion as to a date upon which the company became insolvent. That is, we form the view that after that date, the company could no longer pay its debts as and when they fell due and payable. Any debts that are incurred after that date that remain unpaid, the directors become personally liable for those under the insolvent trading provisions. Now, that is the case in when the actions by the director in allowing the company to trade whilst insolvent are what we would call genuine mistakes, or there isn't an issue there of recklessness or dishonesty. In circumstances where a director knew or really should have known if they had been attending to their duties in some way and not closing their eyes to the circumstances of their company. So if they knew or ought to have known, if they were acting dishonestly or reckless, then there's an additional component to an insolvent trading claim, which is a potential criminal liability. We as liquidators don't regulate and enforce those criminal liabilities. We are required to bring claims against directors where it's commercial to do so, to recover monies that the directors owe because they've allowed the company to trade whilst insolvent. And we have to make a report to the Australian Securities and Investments Commission as to the conduct of its directors. If there's evidence that would suggest that the directors have been reckless or dishonest in allowing the company to trade whilst insolvent, then we have to notify ASIC of that as well. And ASIC may, at its discretion, commence criminal prosecution of directors or otherwise seek director banning orders. That's on top, those penalties are on top of the civil liability that the director has back to their company. So there are potentially some very serious consequences for directors who allow their businesses to trade whilst insolvent.
Yeah, And I guess the other thing as well is for our audience out there, if you are a director of a business, it is your responsibility to know those financials back to front. You need to know what you're signing. You need to know because you're actually responsible for any of the actions that the business undertakes, regardless if you're an active director or not an active director in the business.
That's right. All
right.
The other thing that's worth mentioning, guys, is there is a defense to insolvent trading in the act called the safe harbor defenses. The safe harbor defense says that whilst you are aware that the company may be insolvent and are taking appropriate action within an appropriate period of time to deal with the company's solvency issues with the view to creating a better outcome for creditors, then you can be indemnified against insolvent trading, which is why if you think that the company is insolvent, speak to your advisors, make records of the inquiries that you're making, ensure that you're putting a plan into place in a reasonable period of time that is reasonably likely to result in a better outcome for the creditors, the people that you owe money to. And as long as you're acting in compliance with that and have all of your statutory reporting up to date, you will be able to protect yourself from insolvent trading liability.
That's valuable advice there. Okay, well, Liam, thanks again for joining us on our YouTube video today. And once again, that shameless plug, please let us know.
Guys, please don't hesitate to get in contact because it's not all doom and gloom. Whilst at the moment we are obviously in some very stressful times, we also have some great examples at the moment of businesses who have put their hand up and asked for help, who have communicated honestly with their creditors about a plan for the business to survive, have secured the cooperation of their creditors to those proposals in ways that wouldn't normally be achieved because creditors are aware of the stressful times that we're going through. They're going through them themselves. And we have found that as long as you're being honest and open and communicative with your creditors and taking appropriate steps, generally speaking at the moment, creditors will be supportive and understanding and will support your business restructuring or turnaround initiatives. So there's never been a better time, for example, to get a positive reception from the Australian Taxation Office to propose restructuring arrangements. They are hyper aware of the financial stress that everybody is under, and they want to be seen to supporting businesses who are doing the right thing.
Yeah, and like I say, we've definitely seen that with some of the phone calls that Belinda's made, making arrangements for our clients, payment arrangements, and even actually asking for general interest charges to be remitted. So
in summary, guys, make sure that your accounts remain up to date so that you can get proper financial advice. Reach out and speak to your accountant, your solicitor, or an insolvency expert like myself to get further proper professional advice. And don't be afraid to take decisive action to protect yourself, your company, and your creditors.
All right, Liam Bailey, thank you. Woo!
Thanks for having me, Nathan. I really appreciate it.
No problems. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Okay, guys, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel now for brand new weekly videos, up-to-date information on COVID-19 grants, and exclusive videos to help you become an industry leader in your business. Subscribing means you won't miss out on any of our weekly videos, keeping you up to date and helping you create massive financial and personal growth.